I'll share a little bit of my life with you because it happens to be that that life is something of my past, and I'm ready for something new. A lot has happened in the last few years, and especially in the last few months, that have changed me completely. And I realized it was time. It was time to move on, and it was time to let go of the thing I loved the most, which was big wave surfing. Yeah. And it was because, 3 years ago, I stopped dreaming because all my dreams had become a reality. I had world records, I had titles, I had proved to myself that my life mattered. I had made meaning of my life. And I loved something so deeply that I made peace with death. I was willing to die for what I loved most. And when that dream became a reality, something was off. Something was fundamentally wrong with whatever I had created for myself. For 3 years, I started living reality because I was somebody from a very young age that was just connected to a dream. I just dreamed. All day long, I dreamed. And suddenly, 3 years ago, I started living reality and I didn't have any dreams anymore. And I didn't love big wave surfing as much. And I started floating around life and I started being lost and doing different things. And I started writing and I was doing a lot of ocean conservation and speaking. And but I started drowning. And I was in a lot of pain. And I became very numb. For 3 years, I was very, very numb. And for somebody that lived a whole life of meaning and had felt death, I must say, I'd rather die than be numb. Numb is a place of no feeling, where nothing makes sense, where you're not really doing anything for no reason, and you don't even know the reasons, and you're just, it's not a place I wanted to be. So 3 years ago, I started my third book, and it's called Beyond the Board, and it was, the first 2 books, it was pure imagination, it was picture books, and the third book was meant to be a young adult, a memoir, and I wrote it as fast as I could. I wrote it in days. And I was in Indonesia, a place that I always escaped to for peace. And I wrote it in days, and for 3 years I couldn't look into it. I put down that manuscript, I sent it to my editor, and I didn't want to touch it. And for 3 years I drowned. And I don't know why, but I had to pick it back up this summer, because I had a deadline. And yeah. And when I read those pages again, I couldn't escape reality anymore. My life was filled with pain, and that was my reality. And I had created it. So, realizing that, and putting into perspective that I finished that book the day I got resuscitated in 2013, I knew that whatever happened from that day on was way deeper. And I carried way more pain, more and more pain, all the way until the summer. And I rewrote that book, and I started feeling kinder and getting a better perspective over how I felt as a young teenager and as a young adult. And I gave myself some room to breathe. And when I finished that book, I was ready. I was ready to face my reality. And I called my psychiatrist and I said, let's get off those meds. I had strong PTSD. I had a very strong anxiety disorder from childhood. I had everything. I had disassociations, panic attacks, asthma, sinus, high fevers, blackouts. You name it, I had it. And I stopped the medicine and I went to Brazil to work. And I saw my mother, and I love my mother. And she spoke truth to me that day. And it reminded me why the 13-year-old girl left her mother's house, because she feared for her life. And when I ran to my father for saving, he did the same thing he did back then. He couldn't feel my pain, and he couldn't understand me, but he did something far greater. He set me free. And they did that when I was 13, and I chased that love my whole life, and I created something beautiful with it. I made meaning of my life. I faced my fears. I understood what death was. I dreamed so big that I accepted pain. And if you have ever felt pain, pain comes from love. Nothing can make you hurt as deep as pain. And I felt a lot of pain. So I left Brazil, and I went back to my life, which was for a long time outside of Brazil, alone. And I went to Portugal, and I started traveling for work. And something very interesting happened. My psychiatrist will say I went crazy. I had mania, and I went psychotic for 2 months. I unglued from this world to make sense of me. And at night, I was haunted. Everything, all my pain came back to haunt me and proved me my reasons and proved to me what was true to me. But when you know the causes of your problems and the causes of your pain, you can fix it. And I started trying to resolve my problems. And every night, I felt deaf. I disassociated. I panicked. And it was very, very difficult. I was alone in hotel rooms. But during the day, I did something quite great. I set the inner child in me free. And I felt the world to be magical. And I sang, and I danced, and I painted, and I wrote, and I recorded my own voice in hopes that one day I would come back to this world and make sense of it again. Because I hoped one day my life would make sense again. And what I realized was that everything I had ever done had been for love. And when the men in my sport sat there and criticized me and didn't understand me, I was used to that. I didn't need them to understand me. I understood them. My life made sense to me. And maybe when you chase something that you love just for love, it is so simple that nobody really understands you. They wanted me to make excuses, but I didn't have any excuses. I just made mistakes. And I learned from my mistakes, and that was honest. And so when I set free my inner child, I found something that I needed to find to face my reality and to come back to this world and make sense of things and live comfortably in peace with everything. Well, I was diagnosed with a lot of things, bipolar one of them. But my inner child reminded me of something so powerful, of unconditional love. And I needed that. I needed that to face my own reality. And with that, life became so simple. So simple. I healed all of my pain. All the medicines I grew attached to, I didn't need any of that anymore. I meditated, I walked my dogs, I stayed in nature, I still sing, I still dance, I do everything that makes me feel good. And at some point in life taught me that sacrificing, that pain, that hard work, that all that difficulty was what life was. But I don't think so. I think life's supposed to be easy. Life is supposed to be natural. Life is supposed to be lived. And so, I was finally, ready when I put that book down to go beyond the board, but beyond everything else. beyond the labels, beyond my identity, beyond my titles, beyond my family, beyond the world itself, to find something much more meaningful to me, to feel humanity. Thank you.